Welcome to your deep dive. This time we're diving into some pretty spooky stuff, you guys. Horror games on Steam, no less. You sent us 5 games, all tagged horror, and well, let's just say I'm ready to get spooked.
Yeah, this is a pretty wild collection. We've got everything from like killer cars, which is always a good time, to like a haunted aquarium in Tokyo.
Yeah,
Talk about bad vacation vibes. It's gonna be interesting to see what connects all these different flavors of fear, right?
totally. So before we, descend into the depths of digital horror, maybe we should give everyone a quick overview of the games we're looking at.
Yeah, definitely. So first up, we've got Decimate Drive, and well, imagine if like Frogger, but like way scarier. Like the cars are trying to kill you, which I guess they kind of are in regular Frogger, but you know what I mean.
Oh, totally. And then we're switching gears with Sound of Drop, Fall into Poison. It's a visual novel, and it takes place in, like I said, a haunted aquarium in Tokyo. Someone get me a plane ticket, I guess.
Then we've got Tied Up, which the developer also made Cat in the Box, which if you know, you know. It's this one's got serious psychological horror vibes. Like, it's gonna mess with your head.
Oh, for sure. And it wouldn't be a horror game roundup without something, a little spicy, right? That's where Seven Sins Lost in Labyrinth comes in. It's like anime, but with survival horror. And, well, let's just say things get a little weird.
A little weird is putting it mildly, yeah. And to round things out, we're going old school, like way old school, with the Uninvited McVenture series.
Yeah.
It's a point-and-click adventure game, like from the 80s, back when pixels are scary.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days. Good times. But okay, let's start with Decimate Drive. This one, I have to say, it's got like a 93% positive rating on Steam, which, like, how often do you see that? Especially with horror, right?
Yeah, no, it's super rare. And I think it is. I think it's tapping into that fear, that really primal fear of being chased. Like something's hunting you and it's relentless and you can't stop it. Kind of like, I don't know, a speeding ticket is coming.
Oh, God, don't
Yeah.
even joke about that. But yeah, no, it's like that feeling when a car backfires and your heart just like leaps into your throat. Except in this game, it's like every 5 seconds.
Totally. And the fact that the cars are the bad guys,
Yeah.
like we see cars every day, they're supposed to be like tools, right? Or like symbols of freedom. But this game flips that on its head.
Mm-hmm.
It makes them menacing, predatory even.
Yeah, and it's not just any cars, right? They're like souped up nightmare cars. They've got these like weird headlights and they move so fast. They're weaving in and out of traffic and they're always right on your tail.
It's giving me anxiety just thinking about it.
Right. And each type of car like has its own personality. There's this one, it's like this black sedan and it stalks you. Like it hides in the shadows and you never know when it's going to strike. Oh, that's creepy. It's like the horror movie equivalent of like, Jaws, right? Or you're just waiting for that fin to break the surface.
Exactly. It's all about the anticipation, the dread.
So Decimate Drive. It's got the chases, it's got the creepy cars. But what about the story? Is there like a plot to all this madness?
That's where things get a little divisive. Some players love the story. They say it's like this like really surreal, dreamlike experience.
Okay, I can see that.
But then other players, they're like, what story? I was too busy running for my life to notice.
Fair enough. So it sounds like Decimate Drive is one of those games where the real story is the one you create in your head while you're playing.
Exactly. It's a choose your own adventure in paranoia.
I like it. But okay, let's move on to something a little different, shall we? We've talked about killer cars. Now let's talk about a haunted aquarium. Sound of Drop, Fall into Poison. Am I right?
You got it. And this one, it's a visual novel, so get ready for some serious atmosphere.
Oh, I love a good visual novel. Especially one with a spooky setting like that. I mean, an aquarium. Talk about an untapped well of horror potential.
Right. You're already surrounded by all these like weird sea creatures, and then you add in the whole, haunted by ghosts thing. Recipe for nightmares.
So what kind of ghosts are we talking about here? Are we talking like creepy mermaids or maybe like the ghosts of drowned pirates seeking revenge?
I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say that Sound of Drop draws a lot of inspiration from Japanese folklore and urban legends.
Ooh, even better. There's something about those Japanese ghost stories. They just get under your skin.
Totally. They're so atmospheric, and they often explore these really dark psychological themes.
Speaking of psychological, didn't you say that Sound of Drop also deals with some pretty heavy stuff, like on top of the whole haunted aquarium thing?
Yeah, it does. It's not just about jump scares and creepy creatures. It also explores themes of loss, grief, and trauma.
Oh, wow. So it's like emotionally heavy, too.
It can be, yeah. Like the main character, Mayumi, She's dealing with the disappearance of her sister, which happened at that same aquarium.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, so she's already carrying around a lot of baggage even before she steps foot in the haunted aquarium.
So it's like a haunted aquarium plus family drama plus Japanese ghost stories. Sign me up.
Right. It's a lot to unpack, but in a good way.
I'm intrigued, for sure.
Yeah.
But, okay, before we move on, you mentioned that Sound of Drop is a visual novel. Now, for people who might not be familiar with the genre, can you give us a little, like, a visual novel 101?
Sure. So basically, a visual novel is like an interactive story.
Yeah.
Think of it like a digital comic book or a choose-your-own-adventure book, but with music and sound effects.
Okay, I can dig it.
And Sound of Drop, it's got these really beautiful but also kind of eerie visuals.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack, chef's kiss. It's perfect for setting the mood.
So it's not just about reading text on a screen. There's actual art and music, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a very immersive experience.
I like it. So how does the whole interactive part work? Do you get to make choices that affect the story?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Throughout the game, you'll come to these points where you have to make a decision, and those decisions will determine how the story unfolds.
Interesting. So are we talking like multiple endings?
Multiple endings. Honey, please, we're
Ugh.
talking over 30 different endings.
30. Are you serious? That's insane.
That Sound of Drop for you.
Wow. Okay. So the choices you make really matter.
Oh, they matter a lot. They don't just affect the ending, they also affect Mayumi's mental state. Like some choices will lead to her becoming more and more unhinged.
Ooh, that's intense. I can see why this game gets praised for its emotional impact.
For sure. It's a real roller coaster ride,
Yeah.
both emotionally and psychologically.
So Sound of Drop, it's got atmosphere, it's got story, it's got choices that actually matter, and it's probably going to give me nightmares. What's not to love?
Right. But, with all that said, I do want to give a quick content warning. Like we talked about, this game deals with some pretty heavy themes, and it doesn't shy away from disturbing imagery.
Yeah, good call. So maybe not the best choice for a lighthearted gaming session then.
Probably not. But hey, if you're in the mood for a horror game that will stay with you long after you finish playing, Sound of Drop is definitely worth checking out.
Duly noted. Okay, let's move on to our next game, shall we? This one's called Tied Up, and it's, it's a trip, to say the least.
You can say that again. It's one of those games that's really hard to describe. It's like if David Lynch directed a video game.
Okay, now you're just making me want to play it more. Tell me everything. So, Tied Up, it's giving David Lynch vibes. It's weird, it's wonderful, but what exactly is it about? What's the, elevator pitch?
Okay, imagine this. You wake up in a dark, unfamiliar place. You're not sure how you got there, and there's this, unsettling feeling in the air. You know something's not right.
Okay, yeah, that's already giving me the creeps.
And as you explore this strange new world, you start to realize that things are even weirder than they first appeared. There are these, strange creatures, and the environments are all distorted and dreamlike.
Okay, yeah, I'm officially creeped out. It sounds like Tied Up is all about atmosphere and exploration, like figuring out what's going on and maybe freaking yourself out a little along the way.
Exactly. It's one of those games that's more about the journey than the destination. And speaking of destinations, the ending you get depends on the choices you make along the way.
Ooh, multiple endings. I love a good branching narrative. So how many endings are we talking about here?
Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say there are enough to keep you guessing. And some of them. Let's just say they're not what you'd call happy.
I love a good dose of existential dread with my horror games.
Oh.
But okay, enough about Tied Up for now. We've got one more game to discuss, and it's a bit of a change of pace. Remember how I mentioned things were going to get a little spicy?
Yes. 7 Sins. Lost in Labyrinth. This one's definitely not for the faint of heart or for anyone who's easily offended. Let's just say it embraces its mature themes. Yeah, we say enthusiastically.
Enthusiastically is one word for it. So how about we just put a pin in that for now and focus on the less scandalous aspects of the game? Like, what's it actually about?
Right, so 7 Sins is a survival horror game with a twist. You're trapped in this, ever-changing labyrinth, and you have to fight your way through hordes of demons and monsters.
Okay, standard horror game stuff so far. What's the twist?
Well, for starters, the labyrinth is procedurally generated, meaning the layout is different every time you play. So you can't just memorize the map and breeze through it.
Oh, that's sneaky. I like it. It keeps things fresh and unpredictable.
Well, wait, if the labyrinth changes every time, does that mean the story changes too?
The core story remains the same, But the way it unfolds, the challenges you face, even the characters you meet, it can all change depending on the layout of the labyrinth.
Okay, that's really cool. It's like the game literally adapts to how you play it. Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, the game is designed for both co-op and PvP. So you can team up with friends to survive the labyrinth together or turn on each other in a glorious battle for survival.
Ooh, spicy. So it's like a horror game and a party game all rolled into one.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, especially if you have a group of friends who are down for some chaotic energy.
Sounds like a blast. But okay, I have to ask, what about the combat? What's it like? Is it all guns blazing, or is there some strategy involved?
It's a good mix of both, actually. You've got your standard weapons like swords and guns, but you've also got these really cool special abilities you can use.
Special abilities? Like what? Do tell.
Well, each character in Seven Sins represents one of the seven deadly sins, right? And their special abilities are all tied to their specific sin.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. So, like, the character who represents Wrath, they've got some kind of berserker rage mode.
You got it. And the character who represents Sloth, they can slow down time. It's really clever how they've integrated the theme into the gameplay.
Okay, Seven Sins is officially on my must-play list. It's got everything. Horror, action, strategy, and a healthy dose of anime craziness. What's not to love?
Right. It's a wild ride from start to finish. Just, maybe don't play it with your parents.
Yeah, good call. Some things are best enjoyed with a mature audience. But speaking of mature audiences, let's talk about our final game, The Uninvited. Now, this one's a classic for a reason, right? It's been scaring the pants off gamers since the 1980s.
Absolutely. And you know what's amazing? It still holds up today. The graphics might be a little dated, but the atmosphere, the story, the puzzles, they're all still top-notch.
So for our listeners who might not be familiar with this blast from the past, can you give us a quick rundown of what The Uninvited is all about?
Sure. It's a point-and-click adventure game, which means you explore environments, interact with objects, and solve puzzles to progress the story. But The Uninvited takes it a step further with its creepy atmosphere and genuinely unsettling story.
And it's hard to talk about The Uninvited without mentioning the puzzles, right? Those things were legendary.
They were notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
But that was part of the charm. It made you feel like you really earned your victories.
I can imagine. So for our listeners who love a good challenge, appreciate a healthy dose of nostalgia, and don't mind the occasional bout of frustration-induced rage The Uninvited is waiting for you, just be prepared to use those save slots liberally, because this game is not afraid to throw you a curveball.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the terrifying world of horror games on Steam.
I agree. From killer cars and haunted aquariums to procedurally generated labyrinths and classic point-and-click adventures, we've covered a lot of ground. And it's amazing to see how diverse the horror genre really is. No matter what kind of scares you're looking for, there's a game out there for you.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes horror games so compelling. They allow us to confront our fears in a safe environment and explore the darker side of storytelling in ways that other genres just can't quite replicate.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So to all our listeners out there, the next time you find yourself craving a good scare, remember that Steam has a whole library of horror games just waiting to be discovered. And if you're feeling really brave, maybe even give one of the games we talked about today a try. You might just find yourself pleasantly surprised or terrifyingly delighted, depending on your taste. Until next time, sweet dreams, or should I say, sleep tight.